Ethan Monroe worked late again that night. He was a man who did not know how to rest. The lights of Manhattan were shining through the tall glass windows of the office tower. His company, Bright Core Technologies, had been his dream for 10 years.
Wow.
That dream was breaking apart. The company had lost $200 million because an important part of its computer system had failed. The best engineers had tried to fix it, but no one could find the real problem. Everyone looked at Ethan for answers, but even he had none. He rubbed his eyes and sighed. The floor was quiet. It was long after midnight. He had left a file in his office earlier in the day, and the thought of it kept pulling at him. He decided to go back and get it, hoping the walk and fresh air of the city night would help him think. When he pushed open the glass doors of the office, he expected to hear silence, maybe the sound of machines humming. Instead, he heard the quiet clicking of keys. At first, he thought one of his engineers had stayed late, but then he saw the small cleaning cart parked near his door. Inside his office, a young woman sat in his chair. She was not touching any cleaning supplies. She was staring at his computer screens. Lines of code were running fast across them. Her fingers moved quickly as if they already knew what to do. For a moment, Ethan froze. He almost shouted, but curiosity held him back. The woman was humming softly while typing. He took a careful step closer. She did not look scared or nervous. Her focus was sharp, her eyes following patterns only she could see. Numbers and letters filled the screens in perfect order. Then she stopped typing, looked at her work for a few seconds, and smiled a little. Ethan cleared his throat. She turned around fast, her eyes wide. "Oh, sir, I am sorry," she said, standing up quickly. "I was just cleaning, and your computer was on, and I saw the code, and I could not help myself." Ethan stared at her, confused. "You could not help yourself?" She looked down, embarrassed. "Yes, sir. It looked wrong." "What was written there?" "I was only trying to read it, and then I saw where the mistake was. I did not mean any harm." He walked past her and looked at the screens. His heart started beating faster. The error line that had cost the company millions was marked in red. Next to it was a short note she had written, simple and direct, explaining the fix. It made perfect sense. "Do you know what you've done?" he asked. "I think I fixed the issue," she said quietly. Ethan could not believe it. His top team had spent months and still failed. Yet this woman, who wore a plain uniform and cleaned offices for a living, solved it in what seemed like minutes. "What's your name?" he asked. "It's Claire Dawson, sir." He studied her, trying to understand. She did not look like a computer expert. Looked like an ordinary young woman who carried calmness in her every move. "How did you learn to do this?" "I've always liked numbers, sir. I read books. Once I worked with computers a long time ago. But now I only do cleaning. It is easier this way." Ethan looked at the code again, then at her. There was no question she was telling the truth. Only someone with deep understanding could have seen that error so fast. "You realize this is company information?" he said, though his voice was softer than before. Most people would be fired for touching it. "Yes, sir, I understand," she said.
Yes.
Her tone carried no fear, only calm honesty. "You can fire me if you must." "I am sorry for what I did." He did not answer. Instead, he printed the code she had fixed and compared it to old versions. She was right. The problem had been hidden in a small loop of logic, one that everyone had missed. He felt both amazed and humbled. Claire waited quietly by the door. Finally, he turned to her. "I will not fire you," he said slowly. "But tell me why you are really working here. Someone like you does not clean offices for a living." She gave a small smile that was sad and gentle. "We all have reasons, sir." Ethan felt something change inside him. He'd spent years running after money, power, and success. Now this unknown woman, standing in his office after midnight, had shown him that real genius could come from anywhere. He could not understand why, but he knew he wanted to learn more about her, about what made her hide her mind from the world. As she quietly left the room, taking her cart and tools with her, Ethan stayed behind, staring at the code on the screen and the name Claire Dawson echoing in his thoughts. For the first time in months, he felt hope again. Ethan Monroe could not forget that night. The image of Claire Dawson sitting in his chair stayed in his mind all through the next day. He had seen confidence in her eyes, not the kind that came from arrogance, but from quiet understanding. He wanted to know more about her, to test if what she did was real or just a lucky guess. He told himself it was only for the company, but inside he knew it was more than that. The engineers who worked under him were still frustrated. They did not know how the system had suddenly started working again. Ethan said he was looking into it, but he did not tell anyone about Claire. He spent the morning writing a task that no one in his company had solved yet. It was a puzzle hidden inside a complex code. It looked like a trick problem. He knew that whoever could fix it would have to see patterns that normal people could not. That evening, when the cleaning staff came, Ethan stayed behind. He waited until he saw Claire push her cart down the hall. She looked surprised when she saw him sitting at his desk. "Good evening, sir," she said, a little uneasy. "Good evening, Claire," he replied. "I have something I want you to look at." She froze for a moment. "I am not in trouble, am I?" He shook his head. "No, not at all. I was thinking about what you did yesterday. You clearly see things others can't. I was wondering if you could help me with one small puzzle." "I am only a cleaner, sir," she said softly. He smiled. "Maybe, but you solved what my entire department could not. So if you have a few minutes after finishing your work, look at this file." He left a printed sheet of code and a small notepad on the desk. Then he walked to the corner of the room and pretended to check some papers. Claire stood there for a long minute, unsure, then took a seat slowly. Her eyes moved over the page. Her hands stayed still. Ethan watched her face as she began to focus. She read the code line by line, then again a second time. After about half an hour, she started writing on the notepad. Her hand moved faster, flipping between sketching numbers and organizing short notes. Ethan said nothing. He did not want to interrupt the process. He looked at the clock. It had been less than 2 hours when she placed the notepad calmly on the desk and said, "It is finished." He took the paper. The solution was there, written neatly and clearly. Not only was it correct, but she had explained every step in a way that made complex logic sound simple. He was impressed beyond words. "How did you do that?" he asked. "I just followed the thread," she said. "The pattern is always hiding in the noise. You just have to listen to what the numbers are trying to say." Ethan felt a strange sense of admiration. You talk about numbers as if they are alive." "Maybe they are," she replied quietly. "They tell stories if you listen long enough." He could tell that behind her calm manner there was a depth he did not understand yet. He felt the urge to learn how someone like her had ended up cleaning offices when she could easily lead any research team in the world. He made a quick decision. "Claire, I want you to come work with my engineers. You could help us in ways you cannot imagine." Her eyes widened. She shook her head slowly. "Thank you, sir, but I cannot. I do not belong in that world anymore." "What do you mean?" "I made a promise to myself," she said. "I keep my life quiet. I fix small things now. It is easier that way." Ethan wanted to ask more, but he could see the wall she had built around her. It was not made of pride, but of past pain. He respected that, yet it made him even more curious. He nodded. "Then if you will not work for the company, at least let me pay you for solving this challenge." "No, please don't," she said quickly. Helping was enough. "I am glad the system works." Ethan studied her for a moment. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. People in his world always wanted recognition or money. Claire only wanted peace. After she left, he looked again at what she had written. It was more than a fix. It was a work of quiet beauty. There was elegance in each line, harmony even in the smallest number. He could feel her mind inside it, sharp and peaceful at the same time. That night, while walking home through the streets of New York, he thought of her words about listening to numbers. He realized she might not just be good at solving code. She might see the world itself as one great puzzle, filled with unseen patterns. He also realized something else that unsettled him. It was not just admiration he felt toward her. There was something warmer, something he had not felt in a very long time. He knew she was keeping secrets from him, yet he also knew he would do whatever it took to uncover them, not out of ambition, but out of something human, something far deeper than logic. Ethan Monroe spent the next few days thinking of Claire Dawson more than he wanted to admit. He told himself it was because she had saved his company, but deep inside he knew it was because she had stirred something human inside his heart that he had not felt in years. She had refused his offer, and her quiet nature only made her more of a mystery. He wanted to know who she really was, and why she hid such talent behind a cleaning cart. He asked the cleaning agency about her. They said she was a new member, kind and very private. She had worked there only a few months. She never talked much and always finished her tasks on time. Ethan searched for her record, but nothing useful appeared. It was as if her life before that job had been erased. That made him even more curious. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Ethan found himself sitting alone in his office. He looked at the window where the city lights painted golden lines across the walls. He opened the old company database and started searching different codes and past projects. If Claire had once been part of the technology world, maybe he could find proof of it. After hours of searching, he found a hint. In an old archive, there was an article written years ago by a young engineer named Claire Dane. The face in the photograph was blurry, but the eyes looked familiar. The article described a new method of machine learning that made computers think more like the human brain. It sounded very similar to the code Claire had written on his computer. He whispered her name under his breath. It fit too perfectly to be a coincidence. The next day, he waited until late evening again, when the office was almost empty. When Claire came in with her cleaning cart, he asked her to sit down. "Claire, I need to ask you something," he said, trying to sound gentle. She looked cautious. "Yes, sir. Were you ever known as Clara Dane?" Her face froze. For a moment, she said nothing. Her hands gripped the handles of the cart. Then she let out a slow breath. "I see you found me," she said quietly. Ethan leaned forward. "Why did you change your name? You were amazing. I read your work. You created technology years ahead of your time." She looked down at the floor. "That was another life," she said. "It ended badly." Ethan waited, giving her space. Finally, she spoke again, her voice low and steady. "I once worked for a company very much like yours. I was younger then and believed talent was enough to be safe. I created an idea that was supposed to change the world. I trusted someone I loved, a man who promised we were partners in both work and life. But he took my work and sold it to another company under his name. When I tried to fight back, I was blamed for breaking company rules. My career was destroyed. He became rich, and I was left with nothing." Ethan's chest tightened as he listened. There was no bitterness in her words, only quiet pain. "I left that world," she continued. "I changed my name. I told myself I would never again build something that others could corrupt. I cleaned offices because it gave me peace. The machines were still near me, but they could no longer hurt me." Ethan spoke softly. "You did not deserve that. You deserve credit for what you created. You deserve a chance to begin again." She shook her head. "The past cannot be cleaned like a floor, Mr. Monroe. Some stains stay." He looked at her, seeing how tired her eyes were, how brave her calmness was. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that every person could start over, but he knew words alone could not erase scars. "Claire," he said finally, "you changed everything for my company. You saved many jobs. You brought hope back to people who had lost faith. You did that without asking for any reward. That says more about you than any title could." She gave a small smile, almost shy. "You are kind, sir, but please let this stay between us. If people know who I was, they will bring back the past, and I cannot live through that again." Ethan nodded, though a part of him wanted to shout her story from the rooftops. He promised her he would keep her secret. That night when she left, he stayed at his desk for a long time. He thought about how fragile people could be, and yet how strong. Claire had been betrayed and broken, yet she still had enough light inside her to fix what others could not. He realized she was not a problem to solve, but a person to protect. From that moment, he decided he would never let anyone harm her again. Whether she knew it or not, their lives were now tied together. She had awakened more than a company's future. She had awakened his soul. He knew he would keep her secret, but he also knew he could not keep his heart from her much longer. Weeks passed and Bright Core Technologies began to recover. The system that had nearly destroyed the company was now stronger than ever. Reports showed sharp growth, clients returned, and investors praised Ethan Monroe for his leadership. He accepted the praise quietly, but every time someone congratulated him, he saw Claire Dawson's calm face in his mind. She was still working as a maid, moving silently through offices while executives walked past her without noticing. Only Ethan knew the truth. He watched her sometimes from his window when she cleaned the hallway. Her steps were steady, her movements graceful, as if she belonged everywhere and nowhere at once. One morning, during a board meeting, his phone buzzed with messages. An email from an unknown sender claimed to have information about a secret developer who had changed the company's code. The message also said that someone in the cleaning staff had accessed secure files. Ethan felt cold. Somehow, someone had found out there was another person involved. By the afternoon, several board members demanded answers. They asked how the main system had been fixed, who had done the rewrite, and why no record showed the name of the person responsible. Ethan tried to calm them, saying he had handled it internally. But the chief financial officer, a man named Oliver Grant, kept pressing. If an outsider worked on our system, we need to know. This could become a legal risk, he said. Ethan left the meeting knowing things were getting worse. That night, when Claire came to work, he asked her to sit down. "Claire, I think someone is trying to expose what happened," he said. She looked worried but did not panic. It was only a matter of time. "Secrets never stay buried for long, Mr. Monroe. I can handle it," he said quickly. "Let me take the blame if they ask questions. The company will believe it was me who fixed the system." She shook her head. "No, you cannot do that. You worked hard for this company. If they find out you lied, they will destroy you too." He looked at her firmly. "Then let them. I would rather they come after me than after you." She was silent for a moment. Then she said quietly, "You are kind, Ethan, but this is not your burden. This is my story, and I have run from it long enough." The next morning, the tension reached the highest level. The board called an emergency meeting with shareholders and legal advisors. Reporters had started asking questions. Someone inside the company had leaked information that a cleaning woman had rewritten the code. The rumors spread quickly, filling the building with whispers. Claire came to work as usual, pushing the cleaning cart. Her hands were steady, but her heart was not. She had made a choice, and she knew there was no turning back. When the meeting began, Ethan stood at the head of the table. He was ready to take responsibility, but before he could speak, the door opened and Claire walked in. Everyone turned to look at her. The room went quiet. She walked to the center slowly, her uniform clean but simple, her posture calm. "My name is Claire Dawson," she said. "I'm no man. May know me by another name. Years ago, I was Clara Dane. I wrote the core design that your company now uses. I made mistakes in my past, but when I saw your failing system, I fixed it. I did not do it for money or recognition. I did it because I believe good work should not die even when people do bad things." The room was silent. Oliver Grant frowned. "You admit to accessing restricted files?" "Yes," she answered honestly, "but only to solve a critical problem. I know the risk of admitting this. I am ready to face it." A murmur spread around the room. Ethan stepped forward and said with a steady voice, "She saved this company. Without her, there would be no meetings, no investors, and no future. Punishing her would be the same as punishing the one person who brought us back from collapse." The chairman, an older man named Mr. Collins, looked at Claire for a long time. Then he turned to the board. "The truth may be unusual," he said, "but it is clear. We all benefit from her actions. I propose that instead of shame, we offer gratitude." No one dared to oppose him. Slowly, the mood changed. Applause began to fill the room, soft at first, then stronger. Claire stood quiet in the middle, unsure how to react. Outside the building, news spread fast. Reporters wrote about the maid who had saved $1 million company. People called it a miracle. Ethan stayed close to Claire through the chaos. He made sure no one used her story for profit or glamour. Later that evening, when all the attention had settled down, he found her sitting by the large window of his office. She looked tired but peaceful. "You were brave," he said. She smiled faintly. "I was simply finished hiding. Sometimes the truth has to breathe, or it dies." He looked at her, filled with quiet admiration. The world now saw what he had seen long ago, but only he understood the depth behind her strength. She had won back her name, not through revenge, but through honesty. That night, Manhattan lights shone brighter than before. Both of them knew that something much greater than a company had been saved. The days after the meeting changed everything for both Ethan Monroe and Claire Dawson. Bright Core Technologies became the center of national attention. News channels told stories about the maid who had saved a fortune and the CEO who had stood by her side. The story spread across offices, schools, and homes. People called it inspiring. Ethan did interviews, but never claimed full credit. He always mentioned Claire, saying she had been the real reason for their success. At first, Claire did not know how to handle the sudden attention. Strangers wanted to talk to her, and reporters tried to find where she lived. She had spent years hiding her name, and now the world was saying it out loud. She felt both pride and fear. Ethan gave her a private office inside the company to protect her from the noise outside. He did not ask her to join the research team again. Instead, he told her to take her time and decide what she wanted. For days, she came to work quietly and spent hours looking at blank screens. The pressure of being seen again felt heavy. After some time, Ethan knocked on her door and said, "You do not have to be what they expect. You only need to be yourself." She looked up at him and smiled gently. "I think I forgot who that was for a long time," Ethan said. "Then maybe it is time to remember." They began to spend more time together. Not as CEO and employee, but as two people learning to breathe again. They talked about small things, about city life, about books and music, about how one decision could change everything. Ethan noticed she still avoided speaking about her past much, but that was fine with him. He liked the present they shared. One afternoon, the company held a celebration event for the successful comeback. The entire team gathered in the main hall. Ethan walked onto the stage and thanked everyone for their work. Then he called Claire forward. She looked nervous but calm. When she stood beside him, he said, "This woman reminded us that brilliance can live in any corner of the world, that kindness and intelligence do not depend on titles. Today, she is part of our story forever." The applause was loud and warm. Claire bowed her head respectfully but did not speak. Later, when she and Ethan walked out together, she said softly, "I never wanted fame. All I wanted was peace." "You've earned both," he said. After that day, Brightcore offered her a position as Chief Innovation Officer. She refused the title but offered to stay as an advisor. She wanted to teach young developers how to write clean code and think with honesty. She said, "Titles distract me. I would rather build quietly and let the work speak." Ethan smiled and agreed. Months passed, and the company thrived. Ethan and Claire grew closer every day. They often stayed late, working on new projects and ideas. Sometimes they shared quiet moments by the large window, watching the city lights. In those peaceful hours, something gentle blossomed between them. It was not rushed, not declared, but it lived in every glance and every silence they shared. Ethan had always been a man of numbers, strict and logical. But with Claire around, he learned patience. He learned that life had rhythm beyond graphs and profit charts. Claire taught him that balance was not found in control, but in trust. One evening, when the city outside glowed golden after a summer rain, Ethan asked her to join him on the rooftop terrace. They stood side by side, looking at the skyline. "Do you ever miss your old life?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "No, not the fame, not the noise. I only miss the feeling of belonging to something true. I think I have that again now." He turned to her, his voice soft. "You belong here, Claire. Not because of what you did for the company, but because you changed me. You reminded me what purpose feels like." She smiled, and for a while they stood without words. The city wind brushed through her hair, and he felt peace for the first time in years. Behind them, the office lights shone like stars. Below them, the company that once stood on the edge of ruin now thrived stronger than ever. People called the story of Brightcore a legend of genius and redemption. But for Ethan and Claire, it was something simpler. It was about trust, respect, and to people who had found each other when they least expected it. When the night grew dark and quiet, Claire turned to Ethan and said, "This feels like a new beginning, doesn't it?" He nodded. "It does. In this time, we both start not with secrets, but with truth." She looked out at the city once more, her heart light and calm. She knew her life had changed forever, not because of the fame or the money, but because someone had seen her as more than her past. She had once been a woman hiding behind a uniform. Now she was free, creating again, living again, and loved without fear. Ethan reached out and gently took her hand. There was no grand promise, no announcement, only quiet understanding between two souls who had finally found their peace. The city lights flickered below them like a field of glowing code, carrying their story forward into a future written by their own hearts.